Okay. Good evening, everyone. I think that's a really good number, 76 on a Friday evening. That tells a good, this attendance actually tells us a lot about how far we have come with the IPIC journey from a few years back when we started. To give you a brief about iPitch provides a deal discovery platform that brings together all the different stakeholders in the social impact ecosystem, the startups, the entrepreneurs, incubators, impact investors, on a same single platform where they can discover each other. I think discovery is a very big problem in the sector we work with. Apart from that, I think over the last few years, iPitch has grown a lot. I think in the last 2 to 3 seasons, we have been able to unearth more than 3,400 startups and have facilitated around 23 investments worth 7.5 crores. In fact, this year, iPitch is the largest than ever, with a total investment of pot of 10 crores across different sectors, different mandates, different kinds of stage, as well as instruments. So right now, if I say today, we are looking at investing somewhere between 15 to 75 lakhs for a prototype stage company, and somewhere between 35 lakhs to 3 crore for revenue stage company across instruments like grant, equity investments, and debt investments. Uh, I think even though we are in one of not the best of the times in terms of economy, we all know how COVID has impacted the economy a lot. But this number, the largest ever investment pot of more than around 10 crores, strengthens our belief that we can build the best of India by supporting impactful, innovative, and scalable startups. Uh, in this same time, I would like to say that this Wilgo has not been able to go through this journey alone. We have many supporters, right? Apart from all the investment partners that you can see on the screen right now, we also have multiple ecosystem partners, more than 60 ecosystem partners out there who have helped us reach to all the entrepreneurs out there, including organizations like the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, who have helped us to reach a lot of entrepreneurs in different academic institutions, scientific institutions out there. Okay, having said that, I won't take much of your time. Let us start this webinar. Before we start, I'll just try to summarize what we want to achieve out of this. I think one of the reasons why we decided to have this webinar is that we have been receiving a lot of questions from you. What kind of mandate am I eligible or not? How should I uh, structure my application and all this stuff. So we thought let us bring all the people who will actually go and evaluate your application in front of you, and let us hear from them what they are looking at, what are the do's and don'ts, goods and bads out there. Apart from that, we also have Vinay, who is one of the winner of IPISH 2019, and let us see what he has got as success mantra to share with you. Okay. So with that, what I'll do is let us just start with a small round of introduction. Along with everyone, I would like to give briefly speak about your investment mandate, what you are trying to look at, uh, and then we'll go ahead with our questions so that the participants are able to have a good understanding of what we are looking at. Good. So let's start with Sushant. Why don't you just introduce yourself and let us know what Caspian is looking for?
Sure. Thanks, Tariq, and thanks to the iPitch team for continuing in this virtual environment after great work in last few years. Hi everyone, I am Sushant Bhatia. I am investment manager with Caspian Debt. I also manage the regional office in Bangalore for them. Caspian is proud of Hyderabad. So we are an impact-focused NBFC that provides debt funding to growth stage enterprises across multiple sectors like food and agri, healthcare, clean tech, wash, education, and livelihood. So that's our focus, and I look forward to talking in about what we look at, as the session progresses. Thanks, sir.
Good. Praneeth, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tariq, and thanks to iPitch and Wilgrow for having us on this forum. So I'm Parneet. I work with Upaya, which is an early stage impact investor, which tries to work with enterprises looking to create jobs and livelihood opportunities for the extreme poor in a manner that they are able to increase income for the bottom of the pyramid and thus be able to pull them out of poverty. So yeah, that's broadly about Upaya. We do equity investments, and the kind of enterprise that we look are early stage at the POC level. Yeah, but if there are any other questions, I could take them along the way.
Okay, good. Meera, if you want to introduce yourself and the mandate of ECIS.
Yeah, I'm Meera Shiva. I'm based out of Chennai. I work with the Habitat for Humanity's Terwilliger Center for Innovation in Shelter. That's a pretty long name, and we work. It's a not-for-profit organization with the mandate to provide housing for all globally. The main organization is based in the US, and there are offices in multiple countries with larger operations in countries such as India, Kenya, and Philippines. So our mandate is to work on, while there is a non-profit, we also do work with for-profit enterprises to provide market-based solutions, including innovative solutions, through startups to plug it into the housing ecosystem, particularly with a focus on the low-income segment, offering sustainable products and solutions and tools that would improve the overall housing ecosystem and offer options to these low-income households. So we have been, running accelerator programs in multiple countries, including India and now currently open in Southeast Asia. And we also have a fund called the Shelter Venture Fund. And we also provide grant funding so that startups could do some pilots and test out some ideas if they are in the early stage. So based on the stage of the startup, there are multiple options that are available, because we have a larger ecosystem at play, and we look at housing, water, sanitation, and energy, all with a focus on and sustainable solutions in all of these, with the focus of either already serving the low income household or having a potential to be taken there. So this includes some fintech or housing loan sort of product solutions, land rights, and other software tools and technology for construction project management. So it's a wide variety of solution. It need not currently have the low income household as the target, but if it has a potential, we are willing to look at those as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Meera. Mehak, you can go next.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Mehak and I work at Beyond Capital Fund. We are a seed stage impact investment fund. We invest in India and East Africa. Our focus is on companies that are providing access to basic goods and services to individuals who are living in low-income population segment. By virtue of that, the sectors that we look at are agriculture, affordable healthcare, financial inclusion, and last mile distribution of energy access, waste, and sanitation. We typically invest in companies that have some initial proof of concept, are typically post-revenue, and are solving problems that are large in nature and are building businesses that are scalable in nature. So that's a little bit about us. And of course, we'll be happy to share more as we progress through the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mahim. Tanya, would you like to go next?
Yes. Thank you, Tariq, and thanks for organizing this platform and this webinar as well. So I'm Tanya. I work for Shell Foundation. Shell Foundation is a UK registered charity which supports early stage enterprises working in India and Africa to enhance access to energy as well as increase sustainable mobility for low-income consumers. Our focus and how we support these enterprises is through grant funding along with long-term support till the enterprise is financially viable or is able to access other forms of capital to foundation, and we'll share more through the webinar, I'm sure.
So thank you, Tanya. I think there was some disturbance. I'll just reiterate what Tanya said for the larger audience. I think Cell Foundation is very much interested in startups working in access to energy as well as in sustainable mobility. We'll dig deeper into these areas and understand better more from Tanya and what the Cell Foundation looks at. Okay. So I think we have the last panelist here, who is odd one out, I would say, is not an investor, but the winner of the last year's iPitch. So Vinay, do you want to introduce you and your startup, what you do?
Yeah, I'm Vinay. I'm the co-founder of Kritsnam Technologies. So we are into data-driven water resource management solutions. So we cater to wide audience, including governments like Irrigation Department, Agriculture Department, rural water supply and the municipalities, and also the B2B sector, where the bulk water is being used, like industries, the water intense industries, and commercial sectors like hospitals, malls, etc. So we primarily work on reducing the overall water footprint by giving the ROI to our customers. I'm here to help out my fellow friends who are actively looking to apply for this iPitch. I strongly encourage them. So if any questions and want to, we are definitely having a very wonderful experience with Willgrow and our funder, HUF, Hindustan Unilever Foundation, over the past 9 months. So I'm very keen to share my experiences and so boost their enthusiasm to actively apply for this year iPitch. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Vinay. I think I also, apart from being a host to the webinar, I also represent Willgrow, and we have a very large mandate. I'll try to put it across. But to start with, I'm Tariq. I work with Willgrow as a manager for strategic initiative. And this year, Willgrow is looking for investment across all our 4 segments. The healthcare, energy, agriculture, as well as skill development. Just to quickly give you a brief about all these places, I think in agriculture, we are looking at companies that are solving specific problems in the agri-water nexus, similar to what Kritsnam is also doing, one of our participants from the last year iPitch. Apart from that, we are also looking at innovative solutions or invention-based solutions that can help reduce wastage in the entire agri value chain. So that's a brief about our agri requirements. In the health space, we are very much looking at invention-based enterprises which are working in maternal and child health, in non-communicable diseases, infectious diseases space. Apart from just medical or hardware devices, we are also looking at people with a strong AI and ML application out there, which not only helps, could be a kind of a digital health solution as well, could be across therapeutics, across diagnostics, all these space. And in the energy space, we have a very similar point like Shell Foundation. We are also looking at sustainable mobility startups. Along with that, we are also looking at invention-based startups in the waste to value space, and we'll dig deeper into it as we go ahead. Okay, so now once we have our initial round of introductions, let us dig deeper and understand what each and every person is looking at in the application, and how can we make the application much more relevant for the iPitch, right? So let's start with Mehak. I think last year you were also part of iPitch and you invested in Lalten. So I just wanted to understand, how did Lalten and their model excite you? Why did you make that investment? How that entire journey was with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think any opportunity that we look at, we're obviously looking at certain criteria that it should meet for our investment mandate. So the first thing that we're looking for is social impact. And Laltan, as you know, they work with artisans across India and help them provide a platform through which they can sell their products to a global clientele. So I think it did check that box for us, where they were making a meaningful and tangible impact on the lives of a marginalized community. Similarly, like for any other company that we look at, the key question that we'll ask is who is the end beneficiary and how is their life being made better by the intervention that the startup is doing. The other thing that we look for is just how big this problem is overall, and in that context, what is the size of that opportunity or the size of the market? So we try to understand in that context as well, like, are there any other competing businesses that are solving for that need? How does the startup distinguish itself from those enterprises? And what is its differentiating factor? And part of our evaluation is sort of to understand whether we think that is the right mode of differentiation, and would that lead the company to create barriers to entry and to scale their business. In addition to that, I think the management team is obviously very important for us. So we were impressed with Laltan's management team. They had previously worked at an e-commerce startup, Flipkart, and they had experience in supply chains. Given that experience, we felt that they were a strong team positioned to build and organize the supply chain for crafts and artisan made products. I would say, in evaluating management teams, it's not just their experience, but also whether the teams are coachable, whether they are aware of their own blind spots and their own areas of growth, and they've identified what they will build, what they will outsource. Additionally, I would say, like I alluded to in the initial introduction, we're looking for some proof of concept. So we want to know what the startup has done to date. So we typically don't invest in idea stage businesses, and I'm sure that differs across the board for other investors. But we are looking for what have you done? Are there repeat customers? What kind of revenue have you made? Is your pricing right? So any indicators that you have from what you have already built that you can highlight in your application upfront, I think would definitely catch the eye. So do make use of the application form. I think that's my general tip. Like, don't leave key part of the information, for the pitch deck, because when we're evaluating, like, first thing that we're looking for is what you filled out in your form, and if there are any achievements with regards to your traction, partnerships, stakeholders that you've involved, or any sort of proof around the value proposition of the product, bring that all upfront. Yeah.
Okay, great, Mehak. I think just reiterating what you added, like, I think it's a very important point that you brought in. And social impact is something that is across the board, right? All the people that we are here, all the investment partners are looking for not only a sustainable, scalable business, but also a sustainable and scalable impact. So I think that is one very important thing, and you should not try to force fit your impact in the question out there. Be very truthful about it. How do you feel that impact? What is your thesis of change out there? So that's one very important thing. And the other thing, like, I would like to bring in is be a bit specific, right? For example, Mehak said you need to tell us how big your market is, right? But that doesn't mean that you say that it's a $50 billion market globally. That doesn't make sense for a early stage startup, right? It may make sense, yes, this is what is a possibility out there. But as an investor, what we are looking for is what is the immediate market, right? How are you going to reach to your immediate market? Or maybe what we call it in a different term is what is a beachhead market? So these are a few points I wanted to add. So Mehak, you want to reiterate something or add to this?
Yeah, I think specifically to market sizing, Tariq, as you mentioned, you can look at the TAM, which is the total addressable market. And that could include like, so if you're building a lot of people attending the webinar or building agri-tech companies, so let me just take that as an example. You could say that this is the overall volume of like transactions that are happening in the food sector. And so like we can capture it all, but like define that more specifically and say like, we're offering market linkages to farmers for XYZ value chains, and then try to find data points around, how big those specific value chains are, what percentage of farmers in those value chains, if you're building an agri-tech business that relies on smartphone accessibility, what percentage of the farmers actually have access to smartphones and would suit or fit with your model. And so kind of, I think once you start looking at TAM, you sort of refine that, and also look at what is serviceable and what is serviceable and obtainable. So try to build more granularity, and this will also just help you understand, not just to pitch to an investor, but also for you to understand how big is the opportunity that you're going after, and whether your current business model is suitable for scale, or is it sort of suitable for a small scale intervention.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Mehak. So moving on, Meera, I just wanted to understand from you, right? You are also participating in iPitch for the first time, and you have already also said, as mentioned, you have run multiple accelerators in India, Southeast Asia, Andean region. But CellTech is, as such, is not very mainstream from the perspective of investment, early stage investment, impact investment. So would you like to put shed some light on how do you define CellTech, or can you give a few examples of what kind of startups you have supported in earlier in other geographies out there, so that people get to understand what is the definition of CellTech, which might be very, very different from a layman's definition of just something related to housing, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I think, because it is somewhat new term or a segment, and we felt, this is the time to bring it up and go in a larger way, right? Because we were doing our small thing in these geographies, and we thought we should join with iPitch and go scout for more entrepreneurs this time, because a house is seen as a very important thing in these times of COVID, right? Be home, be safe, right? So, and what about all the people without a home or a safe place to be? So we felt housing is at a point where we must promote some innovations, and, with the lot of discussions around this as well. And what we are looking for is, if you look at many of the low income households, these are not the people who buy home as a product. That is, you don't pay money and buy a home from a builder or a contract, right? So you build your home, and it can be incremental, right? And and there is a lot of, they just change the roof once in a while, or do an extension, or so it's a very complex process of how things happen in this ecosystem. And the house is the center of, that's where probably their livelihood is. And the community and that whole sense of belonging starts from the home. And a lot of health issues also, right? That if the roof is leaky, or it just is too hot, people get health. So with all of this, we feel that the home is a center of a lot of the other impacts people want to bring in. And hence, we take a more holistic view of what we mean by housing. So it's not that we are looking for a better brick, right, or a cheaper flooring material or anything like that. But we are a lot more open in the sectors and the kind of startups we support. So I'll give some startups that we have worked with in the past, be it in the accelerator, the ones that we have given grants to, and the ones where we have even made investments, in India, right? So, so we have, and some I will also pull in from outside to sort of broaden the scope as well. So if I start from outside, there's a platform in Kenya which helps bring everyone in the housing ecosystem together, so that a home loan giver also works with a contractor and the homeowner, so that the dispersal of money and the home progress is managed, right? And these are not builders, as I said, this is self-built homes where the mason or a contractor is building it, right? So it's a software platform where various service providers are brought in, and the financial dispersion also happens, and there's a lot of project management and control. So this is, one software solution we have supported. In Mexico, we have funded one company that is giving people access to buying solar water heaters, and right, so they are building these water heaters themselves, is the technology they have, plus they are also arranging this and doing all the intermediate work in between to enable that this is getting done. So, and in India we have supported one that is that makes roofs from recycled material, agri waste and cardboard waste, and that's one of the startups we have supported. We have funded a pilot project for a 3D concrete printing, technology also. So it's a wide spectrum of startups that we support with the broad. And one more example is one that is in water and sanitation, one that provides water filter and water filtration as a service. So it's a no capex model for which is a attractive one for low income households, and they've also developed that product so it is able to work with many different water quality, including water with arsenic and stuff like that, and they are giving it in this format, pay as you go sort of format. So we look for not just product innovations but also business model innovations in water and sanitation and energy solutions as well, right? So that's the broader mandate, and what we look for is for the funds, the bar is higher, but at this point we are not scouting so much for the fund as it is for the grant program. Here we want a proof of concept, right? Just an idea is just too complicated for us to deal with, so we want to see at least a prototype of the product, and maybe if you have any early customers, paid or unpaid, that's okay. And what we want, or the impact we want to make with the startup, is help them do a better pilot and then use that to showcase and get additional customers, because many of these tend to be like products, and that there is a lot more proof needed before someone will sign up and buy it, particularly the core housing products like a roof or a tile or things like that. So that's the kind of stage and the sort of companies we are looking at.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Meera. I think there's a very interesting point that you brought in. I can see companies from each and every aspect of things. Like there's a SaaS company, software as a service company doing work in Kenya, to a 3D printed home, to a solar water heater in Mexico. So I think it gives a good understanding to our audience as well. The definition of housing is very, very different than a typical housing thing. And the other thing which I think Mehak also reiterated is we will look towards some kind of a pilot, some kind of a prototype, some kind of POC. We want that you have put your hands, you've made your hands dirty in the actual product out there. So that gives us a lot of confidence as well. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Meera. I think I'll just go ahead with Tanya. So Tanya, I'd like to understand, like you said, like agri and energy is one area, as well as sustainable mobility. So can you just shed some light on how do you define this, or how do you what kind of companies you're looking at? Maybe a few examples also would help.
Thanks, Tariq. That's a great question. So just before going into the sector, I'd like to highlight that again for us also the criteria primarily is impact, scalable impact on low-income customers, including women. And this impact is in terms of generating more livelihoods, increasing incomes, and also in terms of reduction. So these are the areas of focus in terms of the impact areas. And then as you asked the question about the sector, so our focus is access to energy and sustainable mobility, and because of the geographies we work in, which is in sub-Saharan Africa and India, where most of the low-income customers that we were working with through our access to energy and sustainable mobility companies were employed in the agriculture sector. or earning their livelihoods through the agriculture sector, we decided to keep the agriculture sector as well as a key focus area for us. And for that, we last year started working on a partnership with FCDO, which focuses on supporting or increasing access to productive resources for farmers in order to increase their incomes. But also we are looking at not just the energy agriculture nexus, but also the ecosystem which enables this nexus. So we are also looking at market access as well as access to finance for smallholder farmers, like enterprises that offer these solutions. So just to explain the energy agri linkage a little bit, so we've in our portfolio we've been supporting companies working in the the cold chain sector, post harvest value addition assets for farmers, access to markets obviously in different forms and models, and access to finance and training, for example, access to finance for inputs. So these are the kind of models that we support. It could also be a model revolving around waste to energy, but in the agri value chain. So these are some of the examples that are already there in our portfolio. But because, as I mentioned, we are looking at the agriculture ecosystem, we will also look at how big the problem is that the enterprise is solving, and it doesn't then necessarily need to have a direct energy linkage. It could just be supporting the agriculture ecosystem, which in turn enables more access to energy for smallholder farmers. So I hope that was a clear answer, and then you can ask any follow-up questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tanya. Like, I think agri and agri energy nexus you are able to explain very well. But do you want to add something on the sustainable mobility space? So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that are happening in the sustainable mobility, be it electric bikes, cars, the entire energy charging infrastructure and everything. So there's a lot of things that are happening. So do you want to focus your what kind of startups you are looking at?
Yes, thanks for that question. So again, that is sustainable mobility is an exciting sector, as you mentioned. There are a lot of investors, a lot of ecosystem enablers in the sector, working in the sector. But what we've seen in our work in the sector is that there is a lot of attention on urban mobility solutions, which are again concentrated in a few metros or a few bigger and now maybe in some tier 2 cities as well. But if you look at rural mobility or even connectivity between rural and urban areas, which could include logistic solutions for farm to market as well, but it could also include just transport of sustainable mobility solutions for transport of goods as well as people, other goods as well as people, from rural to rural or rural to urban areas. So we haven't seen many solutions in that sector. So even though if you look at the stage of companies we are looking for, in the agriculture sector, we are looking for companies post POC which are ready to scale and we can help them in their journey to scale. In the mobility sector, we are also looking for very early stage solutions just because of the lack of impactful solutions or scalable solutions we have found till now. So our focus definitely is on rural mobility.
Great. I think that's really helpful. And one more point, I think what you brought out is you are not only looking at products as a solution here. So you're also looking at someone who might be using sustainable mobility to build a viable business around it. Like, say, for example,
yes,
rural transportation could be one of those things, right?
Yes, exactly.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Tanya. So now I'll just gears a bit and I'll go to Sushant. He's a debt provider. He's not a grant or equity maker. And there are a lot of people who just don't understand will debt ever work in an early stage. So Sushant, can you shed some light about debt, how it is, how you are supporting impact through debt, and what stage are you looking at, and how debt can actually be used at different stages of a company?
Sure, Tarik. Yeah, thanks for questions. There are multiple parts to it. I'll use the first part to give a insight into how Caspian started this NBFC. Caspian was from beginning an equity investor. Caspian was a venture capital fund focused on investing in financial inclusion space for 9 years before launching the debt fund. See, the idea was our own founders, where Caspian had invested equity, were unable to raise debt either for working capital or for capital expenditure, and they were finding it difficult to approach banks or bigger NBFCs because maybe they did not have enough collateral to provide, and everybody asked for collateral, in traditional banking, or they did not have 3 years history of profitability. That's also one thing which banks ask, and these businesses had proven themselves. Many of them had become profitable, but they were still struggling. And as we know, and as the founders also know, raising equity is not just hard, it's scarce, and it creates dilution in shareholding. And there is only so much that you want to dilute, to have ownership and skin in the game there. So that was the hypothesis, that there is a lack of growth capital market for professionally managed enterprises. That was the hypothesis 7 years back, and we started with that hypothesis. Caspian, being an impact investor by inception, focused on the sectors, starting with financial inclusion in the first year, then expanded to food and agri, clean tech, healthcare, wash, education, livelihood. So within impact sectors, ours is a very broad mandate. Except waste management, there is no other sector that we can't look at. Waste management also, due to a mandate by our investor. But we have a very broad mandate within the impact segment. So yeah, that was the hypothesis, and in last 7 years, that hypothesis has been proven correct. Caspian has funded 150 enterprises through debt, and many of them are at different stage. Now, to answer your question, where should debt come in, and which stage should debt come in? To put it simply, debt should be thought of as a tool that can be utilized for predictable cash flow gaps, right? Wherever predictability is there. Let's say if the company has a purchase order from an existing client, which they've historically served, but they don't have the money to start building inventory now, right now, or start doing capital expenditure. That's a predictable cash flow. You should think about using debt, and are there lenders willing to fund that? Or there are receivables, and as entrepreneurs who are serving B2B customers know that there is a gap in terms of payment receiving from the customers, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So this working capital gap again is a predictable cash flow. Here, debt should come in, it should come in your mind, and the confidence of servicing that, right? Because there's a predictability, it gives you comfort. Let's compare it to something unpredictable. Let's say you're developing a new product as a founder, and you really don't know whether this product will be successful or when it will be launched and successful. It may be 6 months down the line, it may be 12 months down the line, it may be 3 years down the line. That's an unpredictable thing. Equity or grant is the right way to fund those things. Best source of capital, I say, is advance from customers. If someone is willing to pay you advance, you should go all out and utilize that, and push for advance. That's the cheapest and best source of capital. So at Caspian, we look at a revenue history. Like any other lender, we look at revenue history. Now we look at usually we look at 2 crores of revenue, because our minimum ticket size is 50 lakh. And that's also a way to think, if founders think that 50 lakh debt over 12 or 24 months or 36 months can be serviced by my business based on their cash flows, you should definitely think about that, because it helps you not dilute your shareholding. It helps you build credit history. Many of our borrowers are first time enterprise who have borrowed funds, and in a few years later they can graduate to bigger banks, access larger scale of funding, cheaper funding. That's also another value add that our entrepreneurs have found, and have graduated to multiple lenders for that matter. So yeah, hopefully, Tariq, I was able to answer some of your questions.
I think that was a great way, the way you explained the need of, or how can you use that predictable cash flow plus confidence of servicing it. And it's a very good way of putting forward how that can be used. And also, as I understand, right, you don't have a very specific sector mandate, right? Most of us will have some sector mandate, but as I can say, apart from waste to value, you are open to each and every impact sector in here for a eligible company or who needs a debt, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. And and people who are willing to measure it as well, like all of us, say, not having impact is obviously one thing. Willingness to measure it and report is another parameter. I am sure all of us present here on the panel, want that and want to kind of nudge the entrepreneurs also there.
Sure, sure. I think you brought out a very important point, the need to measure impact. And I think the entrepreneur, the larger point is, one is an intent, and I don't think anyone would have a problem with intent. The other is, how do you measure it? And I think all of us out here can help you in designing and helping you create a methodology for measuring it in the right way. And I think once we come to Vinay, he can explain how we have helped him in measuring the impact that they create. Okay. So before I go to Vinay, I'll just go check out with Praneeth. Praneeth, I think you have been a partner. You and Upaya have been a partner for iPitch for a long time, and the multiple things that you have seen. You have seen multiple rounds of applications. So, what do you think? Do you have any specific pointers for an entrepreneur to keep in mind while applying for iPitch? And also, if you can explain a bit more about your mandate of Upaya.
Got it. Yeah. So let me start with the mandate, and then let me get into specific pointers about the application form. So like I said, Upaya looks to work with early stage enterprises that are trying to create dignified jobs and livelihood opportunities for the extreme poor. That results into a substantial income increase. The hypothesis here is that by giving people predictable livelihoods and increase in income, it is possible to lift them out of poverty. So since we are more livelihood focused, we have found that we end up gravitating towards certain sectors like agriculture, handicrafts and handlooms, waste, skill and employability platforms. But we are not restricted to it. So any kind of opportunity wherein lives are being improved by providing them reliable income increases, we would definitely like to work with such enterprises. Our investment is more of equity or quasi-equity type. Ticket sizes are in the range of $50,000. And the type of companies or enterprises that we look at, we would like to see that they have some kind of validation on the ground, some kind of proof of concept before we try and work with them. What we also do is, apart from just investing, we also have an accelerator program through which which is a 3 to 6 month kind of a cohort, wherein we try and work with enterprises to make them more investable. So these are the two manners in which we engage with the enterprise from an Upaya standpoint. So what entrepreneurs would want to do when it comes to iPitch? So if you look at the iPitch application, right? So it has just the adequate number of questions. It's a very well-made application form, with majority of the questions being of factual nature and provides just the right kind of information to anyone who wants to evaluate. The 3 key questions where someone would want to take time out and articulate adequately are the questions around problem statement, the solution that you're offering, and your impact, right? So how do you articulate well, right? How do you ensure that you are catching the right attention of, say, the investment partners? One way to do that is to try and align your answer with their investment mandates. I'm not saying force fit your answer, but if you can ensure that the points that you're mentioning in your answer cover everything that a potential investor in this group would want to know, it would really help, right? So for that, what you could do is if you could just briefly go through the websites of everyone here, that would give you a great context on what every kind of partner is looking for, and that will just enable you to ensure that the answer will be better appreciated by the investment partners. To give you an example, say for instance, we have found in so many occasions that enterprises that are doing great work in the scaling space end up writing more about the people that they have trained than, say for instance, in our case, about the placements that they've achieved. And given a mandate is more aligned towards livelihoods and job creation and job support, we would like to know more about that aspect, say for a scaling enterprise, than just training, right? Like, don't stop yourself there. And this can be very easily mitigated if you can just take some time out and know more about the investment partners. So that is one way to look at it. From an Upaya standpoint and mandate, what I'm sure our team is going to obsess the most on is on impact. And the way we measure impact in this space is scale and depth. So scale is the number of people that you can potentially impact in extreme poverty, and depth is the kind of income increase and livelihood support that you can provide. And at all times, if possible, for those three questions especially, if you can quantify what you're trying to say and just be concise about it, it would really help reduce a cognitive load for everyone who's trying to look at the applications. Yeah, but that would be my take on this.
Thanks, Praneeth. I think that's a very important point that you said. Very basic, do a simple Google search, get to the website of all the investment partners here, and you'll get to understand a lot more about what they are looking for, right? And if you can align it, that will not only make our life easier, but also help everyone out there to go through the applications in a much better way. So thanks a lot, Praneeth. And I'll move to Vinay. So Vinay, what do you think? How was your experience of iPitch 2019, and what did you do to make you one of those winners out of all the different 1,000+ applicants that applied over there?
Yeah. Thanks, Tariq. So I was, looking at the questions being asked by the, so the participants, so I can genuinely empathize them, so what's going on in their minds. So all wide variety of questions, including, some of the impact, so some of them are very early stage, some of them are not even started the company. So I'll just give a brief on, so what situation we were there, so and which helped us, so how we have made into the Willgrow. So we started in 2015, have executed some of our projects, so we did a revenue of around 17 lakhs in an annual, so total of around 2 years combined around 20-25 lakhs is the revenue we had made. So that was the stage in which we were when we got selected to the iPitch. So I guess that helps some of the participants on so what so which stage we got into there. So I can see most of the panelists have also mentioned that some kind of proof of concept have been established, would be a preferred choice for them, is what existing panelists have said, so but also there are more number of panelists and more number of investors who will be, and incubation centers will be looking into these applications. So I also recommend everybody, so even the early stage, the mid stage, or even the people who are scaling up, all of them to actively apply for it. So yeah, that's the position in which we got into the iPitch 2019. And on the application side, so we predominantly, I guess some of them are statutory details, and the three major questions are the problem and solution and the impact. So the questions are very much straightforward, not asking, so all, so unlike the lengthy applications which we usually write. So we used to write some probably like 4 or 5 applications every month, and so iPitch has been one of them. But as I was in touch with Willgrow a little before that, so they helped us understand, okay, this is not only for one investment or two investments, it's probably a pool of investors who are commonly looking at it. So we did spend active time in this, so actively, if you ask me, like, 2 to 3 days, we did spend full time in looking at the number of words, and so routing it through some of our mentors, so that these are the 3 questions which we are answering for Willgrow, and so looking at doing some research on the mandate of the investors who are looking at it. So we did target, so 2-3 investors, sort of a few of, so multiple of them, so say, okay, so we are actually fitting into these 2-3 investors, and try to see, okay, so where what's the company's vision is, and also what's the, so investors' mandate is, so we try to actually fit, not change our whole pitch to fit the, so investors' mandate. So definitely, I don't suggest please do that, because it's definitely the startup is your baby. investors, you should try to find the right investors who are fitting into the vision, not you fitting into the mandate of the investors. Is one suggestion which I can tell to the applicants. So spend time on the applications. Because it's just one platform in which you can get exposed to. We have like 5-6 investors here, and so I guess more number of investors would be looking at the application is what so you would be looking at your application through iPitch. So probably for the next 1 year, all the so this application would probably go for next 1 year through the iPitch here. So yeah, that's more or less on the application side. So is what I would have the recommend. My suggestions are, Tariq.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Vinay. I think you brought in a very important point that the iPitch application is not a one-time thing. At least it's relevant for a year. I think as an example, we have made around 20 odd investments directly through iPitch, and almost around 20 to 23 investments that have happened apart from the iPitch time through our applications, either by Willgrow or other investors as well. And I'll just bring in Praneeth here because Praneeth also runs another accelerator program apart from iPitch. And I would like to understand from him if how iPitch has helped the application that they get in iPitch, how does it help in their accelerator program as well?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think iPitch has been very key for us in order to be able to interact with some amazing entrepreneurs and startups, right? So for instance, the cohort that we just closed, that we just ended some time back, we had around 12 enterprises in that cohort. Out of that 12, we met 6 of them over iPitch. So that's like 50% of our cohort was essentially, introduced to us through iPitch. And for us, from an accelerator standpoint, so we also invest in enterprises who take part in our accelerator. And given that we invest in up to 3 enterprises in our accelerator, the conversion rate is very high in that case. So we look at iPitch not only for direct investments, but also for source enterprises or look at enterprises that we can also introduce them to our accelerator program as well. Even from an investment standpoint, if you look at it, iPitch has been tremendous for us, right? And just to take forward the point, so while the application is useful to you guys for a year, even for the investors, right? We keep looking at that application list over and over again. I personally can say that I have looked at the iPitch pipeline of the last year multiple times while trying to see who is it that we can interact with more. And out of the roughly 8 investments that we have committed for in this calendar year, again, 4 of them were introduced to us to iPitch. So in that way, it has worked out really well for us, and we actually look forward to meeting a good number of startups that we can invest in through this program.
Great. I think thanks a lot, Praneeth. iPitch pipeline has been useful to you even after it. And that's what we want to iterate here, right? We give a good amount of time like to apply here, because your application will be relevant even after the iPitch season is over. There are multiple investors that keep on looking at it, right? So having said that, I just wanted to go back to Tanya. You have been running accelerator program earlier as well. So now iPitch is like a virtual platform and in the current situation. So how do you think partnering with iPitch in a virtual mode has helped you meet your objectives?
Thanks, Taik. This is a very relevant question, especially in the current environment where it's become very tough for any kind of investor or funder to perform due diligence prices that they're not already they don't already know about. So one of these is we have specifically partnered with iPitch because of this environment. Because we want to reach out and identify and get to know entrepreneurs and ideas which are beyond the what we have. I feel like this is very inclusive platform. It's open for application. There is a gender focus. we are looking at inclusive modeling at models beyond the startup house basically. So I think during this time when it's not many events where you can meet entrepreneurs or not
Tanya, could you just
your network.
Your voice is breaking down. Can you switch off your video?
The video?
I think that should make
Yeah.
things better. Yeah, I think it's better now. You can go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, I think iPitch works really well in this scenario when we are bound by just our networks, and it gives us the comfort and the confidence that we can go beyond our network and identify new ideas and new entrepreneurs. That is difficult to travel when they're working. You can go beyond your. So I feel like this is a very inclusive platform specifically this year.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tanya. I think one more point I wanted to bring in here is so iPitch is also a platform which focuses a lot in tier 2, tier 3 cities and in hinterlands of India, right? So most of the places our marketing is very much designed towards reaching out to entrepreneurs in the tier 2, tier 3 cities and even villages out there. And interesting, one more thing that we have launched this year is also a application form that is completely in Hindi. So we wanted to reach out to more and more people who, without keeping a language as a barrier. So let's see how does that work this year as well. So moving ahead, Mehak, I just wanted to check with you, like apart from the pointers that you said regarding the impact, the scale thing, what other 1 or 2 pointers that you want entrepreneurs to keep in mind, just to so that their applications becomes much more relevant to the people who are evaluating it?
Sure. I think that's a very fair question. So I think one thing that I want to stress is that when we're evaluating deals, we're looking at hundreds of applications, and what that means is that even for a single sector, we are looking at again hundreds of applicants who are solving challenges in those sectors. So rather than making your problem statement very generic, if you can be more specific around what challenges people are facing, I think that is a good way to approach or catch attention. Similarly, I think, based on my experience of reading the applications, sometimes people are very vague in the way they describe their solutions. The solution almost sounds like a vision statement. We're going to change the state of agriculture in India, or we're going to change the way farmers do this, or we're going to change, make it easy for people to access healthcare at the last mile. Now, I think while all of that sounds grand and certainly a vision that you should aspire for, and no less, but when you describe your solution, be very specific about what product offerings you have. So we've built like these tools, or we've done this and that, like just make it very clear what is it that you're doing, and also make the problem statement more specific. I think that definitely helps. And I think, like I said earlier, if there are any key achievements, please fill them out upfront in the form. Similarly, like do not leave any optional questions in the form unattended. Do mention all your traction and revenue figures as well. And when describing the management team and their experience, rather than just saying, I worked here and I worked there before this, talk a little bit about the functional skills that you have acquired that really help you be good at the problem that you're solving. And so I think that really helps us understand what is it that you are bringing to the table, in addition to your networks, or in addition to the organizations that you've been associated with, and just help us understand like whether this is a complete team, or there are any gaps. Yeah, I think those would be some tips from my side.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mehak. So I'll just come to Vinay now. So we have been talking a lot about our mandate, about what you should do in your application and all. I just want you to So the participants, the other side of the picture, right? So what happens after you have been selected? You're part of the incubation program. So what can they expect out of it, what has been your experience around it?
Right. So yeah, thanks Tariq for asking that question. So that's the beauty of So I can't resist to tell about that. So yeah, so I guess one previous question which I missed to answer is, so what kind of funding it is? Going to be debt funding, equity funding? We also had it till the final stage of our final stage of our EIC. So it all depends on the investor. So somebody want to just give us a grant, somebody want to give us an equity, somebody wants to give us a debt. So it all depends on which investor selects your. There could be multiple investors who selects the application and then who goes for the screening. So it's purely depending on the investors. That's for the audience part. So once so the we have been selected, so that's where the whole incubation with Wilgrow starts. So we have incubation with almost 3 incubators. One is the IIT Kanpur SIIC Startup Innovation Incubation Center. So one is with the Wilgrow and one is with the Social Alpha. So so yes, we do have a good support from all the other 2 incubators also, like IIT Kanpur. We have been staying in for the last 5 years now. So we do get tremendous support in terms of the whole network and all the infrastructure from the IIT Kanpur facilities we do get. But thing with the Wilgrow is, so we can call it more as a hand holding, so they are concerned about our business equally as us, so where the other incubators empower us. Okay, so you please look at your business, but they seem to be more concerned about us or equally concerned about us as our business is. Okay, so we have a weekly call every week. So exactly at Tuesday 2 o'clock, so it's the time, so so I had to come back from my lunch. So okay, I need to attend, so it's more like an incubation weekly call with Wilgrow. So where we have been assigned a portfolio manager. So currently Sham, earlier Anika used to be there. Currently Sham is leading the portfolio for us. So it's just a 1 hour call, so but they run it very, so they churn the whole, so weeks, so what's happening with us, so they put tough questions to us. So just like it, so a teacher asking us, so not to, so punish you, but so just to think, okay, boss, are you doing this right? So they have been helping us very actively, so in the whole of the plan, 9 months, so almost every week, just a few weeks we missed it because of some busy from either side, but so we have had almost a conversation with them every week mandatorily. Other than that, so some, so impromptu calls keep happening there. So they helped us in refining our pitch. They helped us in refining our go-to-market. They help us, currently are helping us in doing an impact assessment for one of our projects, which we are doing with Karnataka Irrigation Department for the helping the water user associations. They are currently helping us with the PR. So they have allocated us a mentor. So where Wilgrow pays for the mentor, so for the number of hours he spent with us. And they're also helping us with the raising our next round of investment. So it's kind of like, so we have one more co-founder, if you really ask me, I'll put it that way. So yeah, so that way it's very exciting, so even if you forget something, chalo, so if you feel like, so your energies are dropping every Tuesday, so our energies go high, saying that, okay, fine, okay, so there's one more person is there who is watching us, not watching us, so pushing us from the back, so helping us not to fall down, so when like, especially after the COVID, where we are like, so completely looking in the dark. Okay, so how the market is going to be like, so how, so is it a right time to pitch for how much investment has to be there, so how much investment we need to raise, what kind of investors to target. So there have been like kind of support for us at every step, so any problem we face into, like, so I'll pick up the call and, so okay, so this is the case, how do you suggest? So they give a couple of options, and then they connect us to some more people. So that's how we have been getting into this. So that way, like, let's absolutely assume that, so you're getting one more co-founder with you. I mean, for all the founders who are talking, in this webinar. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Vinay. I think it's not only Wilgrow. I think all the investment partners that we have here will have a similar kind of approach in early stage enterprises to just support you in any way possible out there. So that's great to see your side of picture, what happens after the iPitch is over. Sir, I think we have got 10 more minutes left. Maybe what we can do is go ahead and have a quick round on a few questions and see what we have got. So I think there was one question that I saw was on is having a patent or an IP a mandatory thing for a seed investment? I don't think that's the case. But maybe any one of you, Praneeth, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, no, sure. So for us, from an Upaya standpoint, I don't think it is a requirement or a mandate. If IP, if it helps you create defensibility around your enterprise, sure, go for it. I think an entrepreneur should look at it from that lens. For us, when we're looking at an enterprise, it is not a requirement at any rate. So we are absolutely fine with even innovative business models rather than pure play tech innovations.
Okay, I think that's the case. The point is having an IP brings in more defensibility for you. So that is always good. But I don't think that's a entry gate barrier as such. So even if you don't have an IP, having an IP is good to have, but certain businesses cannot have an IP as such. Having said that, I would like to put one very important point from the Willgrow standpoint. So we at Willgrow look at hardware and innovation and invention-based enterprise. These are very dear to us, right? So we have been supporting a lot of medical devices, agriculture space, in energy space. So we have a very, I would say, a soft corner for invention-based enterprises. So we really love working with them. But having said that, there are certain enterprises where you cannot have an IP, right? If it's a market-based model, so you're connecting different parts of the stakeholder, then you may not have an option of having an IP. But it doesn't make your business any smaller or any bad than anyone else. So it's important that it's how do you present your business? What about your defensibility and everything out there? Great. By the way, you guys want to answer any particular question from the Q&A section? I think there is another question that is coming in here. Are we looking at not-for-profits or an NGO as such an iPitch? Unfortunately, not. All of us are here are looking for a for-profit sustainable solution, which there's nothing around not-for-profit. They also make a lot of difference and impact. But under the purview of iPitch, I think we are specifically looking at for-profit business models, obviously with a very important impact angle to it.
So Tariq, just to highlight one point, because I think few questions were around that, impact. All of us talked about it, right? And measuring it. And some of the founders, when they're starting business, out of their passion, out of their personal passion, maybe impact is not the first thing on their mind. But some of the businesses are inherently impactful. You should not really worry too much about am I doing the right measurement, am I measuring the right thing. Whenever you get incubated, I'm sure there are metrics that can be found because experience. Let's say Willgrow, if you're getting incubated under iPitch, they have vast experiences with entrepreneurs like Vinay, who can guide and mentor you to find the right metrics. Unless you're trying to force fit things, so never trying to force fit. That's and when I say that from all investors' perspective. Don't try to force fit. If your business is inherently serving inaccessible market or improving affordability, right, there is an impact angle to it. It is just that you need support to identify the right metrics.
Yeah. Tariq, there was one question that I thought we could discuss as a group as well. So a lot of people are asking that they are at, say, a particular stage, and would they get equity funding at this stage? or something to that effect, right? So I'd like to invite everyone's views, but personally, what I would want to suggest here is that you may not want to think of it in that manner. How you want to think about it is what kind of capital is right for you at this stage, at the particular stage that you are. Heuristically, at least the way, at least I think about it, is that if you are at a very early stage, that is at an idea stage or at a PowerPoint stage, that is the time wherein you would not want to look at equity investment. You want to look at money that comes with no strings attached, right? Which would effectively be grants or awards at that stage. Equity capital could ideally be more looked at as an avenue to scale up, and debt again to grow your business once you have reliable cash flows. So that is one way to think about it. But yeah, I would love to invite everyone's views on this too.
I echo, Puneet's points completely, very simply put. But I think thanks for pointing it out for participants as well. But completely echo Puneet's point. Nothing to add there.
I agree. And also another thing is there is a different use for equity, grant and debt as well. So it might not even depend on which stage you are, but might also depend on what you need it for. Yeah, so I think that's another point to think about. And another question people were asking was around how much funding they could get through iPitch. I think, again, it should be a question of how much funding do you think you need? And you should be very clear in your ask during your application as well.
Yeah, I think, Tanya, you made a really important point that you don't want how much I can get. It's more important that you have to convince how much you need at this point of time. And also it depends, this is not the only round of investment that you'll be getting. You can also look at it as a stepping stone. Like every round of investment is a stepping stone for the next round and also for the growth of your company. So for example, when you are very early stage, you don't have a product ready, and you go out and say, yeah, I want a investment which is in the series A, B kind of a level, which might be possible in certain cases. But in most of the cases, that's not what the investor would entertain or would be comfortable with, because you have not proven anything. So at that point of time, maybe an investor can come and say, why don't you take a smaller amount, prove it out, and then we can reinvest or help you in raising later rounds of funding. So it's also very important to understand what kind of funding you need and at what point of time.
Yeah, and how this is how you can think about it, right? Like even in the West, right, where capital is available and abundant, whereas capital is so scarce here in the impact space. Even in the West, your typical unicorn enterprises, right, they take 18 months to close a round. Like the stage, the time elapsed between two rounds of funding is roughly around 18 months, right? So that could be one way to think about it. That okay, fine. Even if you use that benchmark, how much funding do I need, say, for a particular timeline to survive, say 18 months or 24 months, or the best scenario would be till you be sustainable. So you should definitely have a view on how much money you would need before you can generate cash out of your own internal accruals and business. But if you can, another way to look at it is, okay, fine. If I'm in the space where I have to probably raise capital again, and knowing that it takes at least 18 to 24 months to do multiple rounds, how much I would at least need to sustain for say 2 years. That could be one way to figure out how much capital you need, because a lot of people also ask us, okay, how do I think about this, or how do I know how much do I need, right? So you could put a time frame to it. The best way is till you're sustainable. The other way to look at it is, okay, fine, there is a certain amount of time that will pass before 2 funding rounds. So how much you would need before in that interim, that could be one way to refine your ask.
Tariq, so just last point to add to Puneet's.
Yeah.
Apart from equity, grant and debt, as I mentioned earlier, the easiest source of money is customer. If you can, let's say if a equity investor is going to take 12 months to close this, just put it in perspective, and how much can you do in those 12 months? Can you chase and get 4 more customers who will pay often in the chase of funding, because it's also right? It's highlighted in the media. Sometimes we lose sight on the easiest and the best source of cash. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yes, that's true. In equity, grant, and debt, we just forget that customer is also a very good source of funding. Vinay, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, just one point on the ask. So we also had this confusion. So how much to ask? So quite often we look at the investors' capability, ticket size, and then so we try to fit our ask based on that. So often so investors see they can raise from, let's say, 50 lakhs to 1 million. So that's even currently we are looking at. So it depends on so what's our next roadmap. So don't try to force fit your ask based on this. Based on the limits. So just see, genuinely plan. Okay, so as per your plan, so to survive for the next 1 year, so how much money do you need, and just put it in the ask. So that so you will also find the right investors who have the capability to do it. Suppose let's say you find some XYZ investor who you think is very fit, so but let's say their ticket size is only 50 lakhs, and then you want to raise around 2 crores. So okay, just because the limit is 2 crores, and if you put the 2 crores, you will not be able to fit. So you need to rightly manage. So what is the what exactly is your ask in the next to sustain for the next 1 year, and then just put it in your ask, so that so, and during the discussions with the investor, so the ask can always be the point of discussion. Okay, so this is not what we can give, this is what is our limit is. So do you think will that be suitable for you? Or maybe you can have one more investor so coming from outside. So this one investor from the iPitch, one more investor from outside, who jointly combining to meet your needs. So there could be like multiple so connections possible. So, and don't just try to force fit. Okay, so investor cannot give more than 50 lakhs, I'll put only 50 lakhs even though I want 1 crore, so as per my plan. So it's just my so feedback to the participants.
Right, I think that's a very good point that you made, Vinay. And this brings us to another point here, that through iPitch also you can have multiple investors putting money in a single company. So they could be co-investments. And in the past, we have had co-investment between two investment partners in iPitch, one like internal investment partner plus an external one. So there could be multiple people who can invest in through iPitch even. Okay, I think we have already 3 minutes past our deadline. So I think it was good discussion. I hope all the participants are able to get much more good understanding about how to approach iPitch, what is the investment mandate, and what can you expect after you have been selected in iPitch. So thanks a lot for all the panelists out there. Also, one more point: as the webinar gets over, you will get a feedback form. So just give some 1 or 2 minutes to it. Fill in that form. That will help us in making the webinars much better, much more relevant to you. And at the end, I would really like to thank my team at Wilgrow, Malvika, Azhar, Akshata, and Janan for helping us put together this awesome webinar out there. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Any other points any of the panelists would like to add here?
Somebody was asking if they get the video, recorded video. You can just maybe answer that.
Yes, I think the video recording will go in the Wilgrow YouTube channel. So I think mostly by tomorrow you will have that video up and running.
Thanks, Tariq, for moderating this.
Yeah, thanks for this, and yeah, I wish the best to everyone who's applying.
All the best to everyone.
Yeah.
All the best, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
all the best. All the best. And just to make a point, I think there are around 1,000 applications in draft right now. And hopefully this webinar would help a lot more of these 1,000 applications to fill in, complete, and submit it finally. Please don't wait till the last moment. Yeah, I know all of us are very much like 12 o'clock, 30th of September, we'll do it just before 12 o'clock. But let's not do that. Try to get it before that, at least a day before, so that helps.
We actually did it just 5 minutes before the deadline. But yes,
sure. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.